Welcome to So You Think You Can Date, a podcast for those ready to do dating differently. I'm Nicki Pappas, a queer, poly, millennial mom who is dating again for the first time in 15 years. What could go wrong? LOLs. While lots can go wrong, and has, a lot has also gone really well. The So You Think You Can Date podcast is about my adventures in dating. You don't have to hold the identities I hold to benefit from the life experiences I share here. Let's talk about communication, connection, and consent, regardless of what type of relationship you are in or looking for. With vulnerability, authenticity, and curiosity, I'm exploring unfamiliar terrain and would love for you to join me. In this 7th episode, I'm going to talk about flirting, more specifically, flirting responsibly for the fun of it. I don't want to bury the lead, so I'll go ahead and say that an important part of flirting responsibly is understanding your motivation for flirting. Understanding the why behind your flirting can radically shift how you engage in flirting with others. To start off here, I want to share the short of it regarding flirting and the narrative I once believed and how my relationship to flirting has changed. Then, in the words of Annie Laurie Wheat, I'll make a long story longer. Most of what I'm going to share in this episode is taken from the new book I'm releasing in June, titled Coming of Age and Coming Out, Stories of Repressed and Reclaimed Sexual Desire. It's available for pre-order on my website at nikkipappas.com/shop. And yeah, I'll just be honest and say that I would love for you to pre-order my book so I can have 100 copies pre-ordered. That would be awesome. Okay, so back to the whole flirting thing. Keep in mind that coming out as queer is something more recent for me. So a lot of my flirting has been with cisgender heterosexual men. Growing up, academically, I was prone to crushing goals. When I was dedicated to something educational, I gave it everything I had. If I could do this for academic purposes, why not in romantic relationships? Why couldn't I just flirt with reckless abandon and go after the guy I wanted? For starters, I was told it's not ladylike to flirt with or go after a guy. Also, I didn't think I was good enough or pretty enough for certain guys, especially the ones who were smart or who were paragons of sexual purity. Maybe most importantly, I refrained from flirting because I was taught to fear my desire. We all know the tired trope of the temptress who distracts men away from their duty and toward their downfall. I saw it play out in the movies I watched, in every genre, from John Wayne westerns to James Bond spy films. Things didn't improve in my young adult years when Bible verses were attached to these misbeliefs to justify the misogyny. Now, not only was it not ladylike to go after a guy, it was much more serious than that. To be the first to flirt with a man was to impede his manhood. It was permissible to be like Ruth from the Bible who got in Boaz's way. I could not do more than be in his way. To influence him in my direction, though. I was to be the prey, not the predator, the hunted, but never the hunter. It was the man's responsibility to target and pursue a woman, and it was absolutely vital that she not usurp his position and the power that accompanies his role. Then there was the ever-present stereotype of the Jezebel that leads men astray. I was taught he follows her impulsively like an ox going to the slaughter. That sounds so serious, from Proverbs 7:22. The takeaway from sermons on this topic was for men to not even get near temptation. And I knew that was a warning for them to avoid any woman deemed dangerous, which, let's be honest, was most of us. The few women who were considered safe were quiet, dressed modestly, and they tirelessly served their churches and parachurch ministries with a smile. Men still shouldn't be alone with those women, of course. If they were alone and something happened, it would still be the woman's fault, and women were a convenient scapegoat to blame for the ruin of any, quote, misguided young man. The men in these scenarios were portrayed as victims of women's wily ways. Repeatedly, I heard a narrative that attributed demonic-like might to women, as if the mere fact that we are women naturally results in an unparalleled ability to deceive men, to bend them however we wish. I wasn't allowed to be a full human. Instead, I had to remain a fantasy, but not cause men to fantasize about me. This view I held of myself and my power continued for decades, until something unlocked for me as I intentionally began exploring my erotic energy, as defined by Audre Lorde in the essay Uses of the Erotic is Power. Lorde wrote, "As women, we have come to distrust that power which rises from our deepest and non-rational knowledge. We have been warned against it all our lives by the male world, which values this depth of feeling enough to keep women around in order to exercise it in the service of men, but which fears the same depth too much to examine the possibility of it within themselves. Our erotic knowledge empowers us, becomes a lens through which we scrutinize all aspects of our existence, forcing us to evaluate those aspects honestly in terms of their relative meaning within our lives. And this is a grave responsibility projected from within each of us, not to settle for the convenient, the shoddy, the conventionally expected, nor the merely safe. So for me, for a time, out of short-sighted self-preservation, I settled for the convenience of white femininity, which included not flirting with men. As a nice white conservative Christian woman married to a nice white conservative Christian man, being sexually repressed was conventionally expected and it was safe. There was no immediate danger for me, but a lack of danger is not synonymous with abundance. As I explored my erotic energy, I also started reading books by women who were in touch with their sensuality. One of those women said something to the effect of, flirting is simply enjoying the presence of another person. This definition helped remove some of the pressure off of flirting and help it not be so serious. Then I started flirting all the time with all the people, and I loved it. But also, I found myself wanting to be desired by the people I was flirting with, and it was difficult to not attach a narrative to the flirting. I was trying to practice non-attachment in the sense of not being attached to a certain outcome, but sometimes it was harder than others. Then I went on my mushroom journey, which I've talked about, and was able to release the notion that I have to flirt in order to enjoy someone's presence. I had an egoic death around the ways I was finding my identity in being a sexual being. My mushroom journey took place when I was writing my book, Coming of Age and Coming Out, about repressed and reclaimed sexual desire. I thought the reclamation of my repressed sexual desire was the point of all I'd been navigating and then writing about it. But turns out it was just a part of it. Now I'm going to dive more into my backstory that led to me starting to flirt when I started reclaiming my sexual desire and then coming out as non-monogamous. I got married when I was 20. I came out as queer to my husband when I was 32. Embracing my queer identity led me to rethinking so much I had been taught about sensuality, sexuality, and the erotic. I realized that under monogamy, I'd adopted a scarcity mindset that led me to trying to hold on to my husband, and that stifled playfulness. Like me, maybe you were conditioned to find, quote, the one, which fosters competition and anxiety and weird ownership issues. We worry someone's going to steal our person. We don't want anyone flirting with our person, and we don't want to flirt with someone else's person. Well, when I started breaking away from the confines of monogamy and named my orientation as non-monogamous, I was feeling all the way done with always having to act wisely, of putting everyone else's desires not just ahead of my own, but in place of my own. I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm messy. I want to be all that for a little while longer because I didn't get to be for so long. Was there someone out there I could be a mess with, but who wouldn't treat me like a mess? Someone who celebrated not just what I did, but who I am without having to be asked? Most days I loved my life and I wanted more. So I knew I was not monogamous, but I had not yet told my husband. So my heart was pounding, my voice was shaking, my pits were sweaty, and there were outdoor lights twinkling above us, and we sat out on the back patio celebrating my 34th birthday, and I came out to him a second time, this time as non-monogamous. I explained that I felt desperate to have an open marriage, not because he was insufficient, but because this is who I am, who I've always been. Over the next year, we continued having conversations. I told him I wanted to be able to date whoever I wanted to date. He could be one of those people, but I could no longer be with just him. I didn't know what was next in my marriage. However, I knew the kind of person I wanted to be as I traversed this new terrain. This included seeking to understand rather than bulldozing over my husband to be understood. It also included a lot of engaging with the intention of maintaining connection, more so than engaging to be right. No matter what, I wanted to live in alignment with the things I value most, which are authenticity, honesty, and curiosity. As I began to explore flirting with others, but was still not in an open marriage, I realized that a part of it for me was that flirting helped me feel more autonomous. But as someone new to it, I was struggling with how to flirt responsibly and with how to flirt just for the joy of it and the fun of it, but not necessary for it to lead anywhere since it couldn't lead anywhere. Then I started feeling resentment about how the flirting couldn't lead anywhere as long as my husband was opposed to an open marriage. Finally, he agreed to open our marriage. With my open marriage came the permission for me to explore what else I might want. I'd already been flirting, but would sometimes feel guilty about it. Now I felt freer to flirt. I wanted to flirt without any regard for the consequences, which I have not personally experienced as a great way to approach things in life in general. But I was flirting and developing crushes like there was no tomorrow. A couple of friends gave me a keychain that had the message, "Putting the amour in polyamorous," and a book that had a section titled, "When You Have a Crush on Everything and Everyone." So I had a reputation for falling in love with people fast, far, and forever. I genuinely thought this is who I was, my whole identity. Then I went on the aforementioned mushroom journey. I did 2.5 grams on the first day and 3 grams the second day. When I was tripping, I had a few egoic deaths. The first was a death and rebirth of a part of myself into something new, something that helps me believe the best about people when the opposite has been true for so long. This believing the best about people formed because I like the way I felt in my body when I believed the best instead of assuming the worst. Another egoic death was around my sex appeal and desire to be desired. The whole second day on the mushroom journey, I kept wondering if my guide thought I was cute. I tried to make myself appealing to him, hoping he would want to get to know me post-trip in a romantic capacity. As I was coming off the medicine, I had the thought, who cares if he thinks I'm cute? I know I'm cute. That's all that matters. I never need the validation of someone else thinking I'm cute ever again. Pre-shrooms, I would say I am a sexual being. I thought if I didn't have sex, I'd die. I was completely unaware of how much of my meaning, purpose, and identity I derived from being sexual. As I came off the shrooms, I accepted a complete loss of sexual desire for any other person. I went from being the person who had a crush on everyone and everything to maybe never having a crush on anyone or anything ever again. And I was fine with that. Further, flirting is not something I currently feel like I need to do ever again. For a few weeks after my trip, it actually felt deceptive to cheat. I don't want to deceive anyone. I can feel good about myself and help others feel good about themselves without flirting. I can enjoy the presence of another person just by being with them, listening with my whole body, deciding in that moment that there is nowhere else I'd rather be than right there. I can do and be anything right now. I really believe that the world is full of possibilities for me. And all I want to do and be in the world is love. Now, while I don't think flirting is something I ever need to do again, it is something that I will do if I want to. And when I flirt, I want to flirt responsibly. So first, I'll talk about a recent instance of not flirting responsibly, and then I'll share a couple of times I have flirted responsibly, including one that is a bit comical. So I met this guy through some creative endeavors. We exchanged some flirty banter in person, then it moved to email, then to text messages. He gave off a flirty vibe in general, so I didn't read anything into the flirting. Also, he didn't give any indication that he wanted anything more than just this flirting when we saw each other. Well, when a friend of his showed interest in me, the friend talked to the guy I'd originally been flirting with and asked if it would be okay to ask for my number. When the friend asked for my number and told me he'd talked to the first guy, I was confused. Well, the friend said that he'd picked up on something between me and guy number one, so he just wanted to make sure everything was good if he were to ask for my number. Well, I decided to text guy number one. I told him that his friend mentioned that they talked about me, but I wanted to check in too. I said that I knew we'd flirted and enjoyed it, so I just wanted to touch base because I didn't want things to be weird. His quick and short response of, "You do you," let me know that he was a bit more irritated than he was letting on. I replied that I just didn't get a vibe that he wanted anything more than flirting and a friendship, and figured if he was interested in the possibility of more than that, he would have said something. I also acknowledged that I was newly navigating lots of things and trying my best, and hoped that I didn't mishandle the situation, and if I did, I hoped he would feel comfortable letting me know. He took the time to share that he was interested in exploring other options with time, but I had said he was too young in a previous text, and so he moved on. He pointed out that I then moved on to his friend who was younger than him. With all that as the backdrop, he clarified that he didn't think the triangle was worth investing too much of his energy into, and ultimately, he liked me and thought I had a great personality. His friend is a brother to him, so he wanted the two of us to have a good time. Though he was irked by the erraticness of the development, he assured me that he'd get over it. He ended the message saying that he would like to let this go and stick to being friends because he thought we'd be good at that, and thanked me for checking in. I apologized for being unclear and careless with my flirting. I own that I had said he was too young, though it was in jest. That's difficult to convey via text. I thanked him for communicating those things to me and said that I'd be more mindful moving forward and reciprocated the desire for a friendship. He kindly responded that a friendship was in the cards. So it ended well, and I don't think I did anything wrong, but it was also a lesson in flirting more responsibly. Emotions are involved to some degree in every flirty interaction. We're dealing with real humans, and real humans are often more complicated than we think. And the second story I want to share is actually a bit embarrassing for me, but it's cute and fun, so I'm going to share it. I stopped by the Y after work, Monday through Thursday. One day when I walked in, a guy was walking out of the weight room to get water, and he did a double take to look at me. I was in awe of just how beautiful this man was. So, as he was staring at me, I was returning the stare. As he kept going toward the water fountain, I headed into the weight room. He then came back into the weight room for the next half hour or so. Anytime I needed to grab the spray bottle and paper towel to wipe down the equipment I was using, I'd have to maneuver around this beautiful man. Eventually, he made some comment, and all I could do was laugh and smile. I didn't know how to respond. Words just left my head. Over the next month, he'd sometimes be in there. We'd exchange a few words, but I couldn't bring myself to engage in a full conversation with him because I was too nervous. I overheard him one afternoon share that he'd been in the gym for 5 hours. 5 hours. I go for 30 minutes tops. So when I was getting ready to leave, he stopped me and asked if I was leaving so soon. I explained that I don't ever stay for very long, and then I gave a little curtsy bow. So embarrassing. A curtsy in front of him and other people. Finally, one day I came in the gym and we started talking. I just owned that talking to him was hard for me because of how attractive he was and how my brain struggled to brain when looking at him. After that interaction, I've been more settled in our conversations and can flirt with him and have fun while chatting with him. The last flirting experience I will tell you about is my first time being direct about flirting with a woman. The woman is a friend of mine, and we've been talking on the phone. We each shared how difficult it can be to tell if a woman is actually flirting or just being nice. So that night, I texted her, I definitely don't want to make things weird between us, so there's absolutely no pressure on what I'm going to say. I just want to let you know that I do find you incredibly attractive, easy to talk to, and wildly intelligent emotionally and intellectually. So if you were ever interested in exploring something between us when you feel ready to explore something with a woman, I'd more than happily make out with you. And just to be clear, I'm super heavily flirting with you and also super heavily respectful of your rejection if you aren't in any way interested. If you aren't interested, I promise it doesn't have to be weird between us on my end. She replied that she was flattered and would keep it in mind, and we left it at that. Okay, friends, I think this is the longest episode yet. So thank you for listening. I hope it was helpful as you were navigating your own flirting experiences. May we flirt responsibly for the fun of it. Thank you so much for tuning in for this 7th episode of the So You Think You Can Date podcast. Make sure to subscribe to So You Think You Can Date, rate and review the show on all the platforms, and share this episode with someone that you think would enjoy it and who is ready to do dating differently. Also, pre-order my new book, Coming of Age and Coming Out, Stories of Repressed and Reclaimed Sexual Desire. Pre-order today by visiting nickipappas.com/shop. Coming of Age and Coming Out is a collection of stories about coming of age from childhood through adolescence and then coming out in my 30s as queer and non-monogamous. It will be released in June 2025. With your pre-order purchase, you will receive a free download of the Come Alive guide in your inbox. If you want to follow my writing, you can subscribe to my Substack that is called Coming Alive, where I write about pursuing all that makes us come alive, per the Howard Thurman quote, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it." Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. You can follow me on Instagram at Broadening the Narrative, which is the account I started in 2019 to document my journey, and broadening the narratives or stories that I was taught about myself and others. Come back next week for an episode about how to stop fucking with fuckboys.